Many of you have heard the term chronic stress, but let's make sure that we're all on the same page, that we all understand what it is. First and foremost, let's start with acute stress. As with anything else that is labeled as acute, it's something that happens for a short period of time, something that maybe happens once or every so often, but by no means is it something that happens all the time or lasts for a long time. The opposite of that, of course, is chronic stress. And chronic stress, as the definition suggests, it's something that happens in a chronic manner on an ongoing basis. Whether we're talking about one particular stressor or set of stressors that just continue to cause stress over and over again continually without much of a break or without any break at all, or whether it's a whole variety of different stressors that just keep showing up, creating this continuous stress event for you, essentially being chronic in that way, that even though the stressors are not the same, there are enough of them showing up with enough frequency and enough duration, or long enough duration, where you don't seem to get much of a break or a break at all from stress, from being exposed to these stressors. So chronic stress is a lot more difficult for everybody than acute stress. It's something that's difficult for our bodies, for our minds, for our emotions. It can take a toll on your physical body, your psychological well-being, and your emotional well-being as well. It's not difficult to figure out then that chronic stress is much worse for you than acute stress, and that the goal should be to get rid of chronic stress as much as possible. Ideally, to not have any chronic stress. Dealing with stress on a semi-regular basis every once in a while, as long as it's not all the time, as long as it's not for prolonged periods of time, most people can handle that rather successfully. But chronic stress, if it doesn't take you out right away, it definitely will take you out with time. So it's absolutely critical to get rid of chronic stress. What's the first step when we talk about addressing chronic stress? First and foremost, you have to realize that you are experiencing chronic stress, and then identify what the specific stressors are. Think about your own situation. If you think you might be experiencing chronic stress, think about it in more detail. Are you stressed out all the time, or pretty much all the time? Are all of your waking hours times when you are exposed to stressors, whether it's the same one stressor or the same set of stressors, or a wide variety of stressors that just keep coming at you without ever giving you a break at all, or much of a break to begin with? What are the most common sources of stress for you? Is it your job? Is it your personal life? Maybe it's your finances. Maybe it's your relationship with your significant other or with some family members. Is it somewhere you live? Is it your neighbor? Is it the neighborhood? What is it in your life that gives you the most stress for the most time in your waking hours? Chronic stressors can also be things such as pollution, whether that's noise pollution or air pollution. We may think that we're able to tune things out, and yes, to a certain degree we can, but in the background, you are potentially constantly assaulted by things, by factors in your environment. So let's say there's an ongoing noise in the background. Yes, maybe to some degree You can tune it out, but believe me, in the background, it is stressing out your body and your mind. Maybe it's air pollution, maybe it's a bad smell, maybe it's poor quality of air, maybe it's a noisy neighbor or highway traffic. Whatever it may be, while you can to some degree seem to tune it out, in the background it really is chipping away at your resilience and your ability to handle it. So think about your own situation. Are you exposed to chronic stress, and what is it doing to you? For some of you, you may realize that yes, I've been exposed to certain chronic stressors, and I have noticed a decline in my physical health, or a decline in my emotional well-being, or my psychological health. Those could all be the result of your exposure to chronic stress. Ideally, the answer to chronic stress is to remove the chronic stressors. But we all know that while that is a possibility with some things, it's not necessarily a possibility with everything. So, does that mean you just give up and take it? Of course not. It's up to you to make every attempt to get rid of those chronic stressors, or even if that means starting by decreasing them as much as possible. But you have to take steps in the right directions. And while you do that, there are also other things that you can do to help yourself better deal with the stressors, to deal with the stressors and their effects more effectively. One of the number one things that I recommend for everyone is proper self-care. If you don't take care of yourself, your physical health, your psychological health, your body, your mind, you are not giving yourself a fair fighting chance in terms of dealing with stress properly. So self-care is absolutely critical. The other thing that may benefit many people out there is learning how to create boundaries. Sometimes those chronic stressors can sneak up on you because there are no clearly defined, upheld boundaries in your life or in specific situations. So think about potential stressors in your life, especially chronic stressors, where the issue lies largely in the fact that there are no boundaries, or maybe the boundaries are not clearly defined, or maybe they're simply not upheld in such a way that would prevent these stressors from constantly assaulting your peaceful existence. Maybe that means turning notifications or the ringer on your phone or your computer during certain hours, maybe at night, maybe during breaks, maybe after work. That could be an example of boundaries that could potentially reduce or eliminate some of the stressors that are currently getting through because the boundaries are not there, or maybe they're not upheld or even defined as well as they could be. And the last thing that I'll bring up is being able to reframe negative thoughts. Negative thoughts can be a very tricky thing, especially when you've been dealing with chronic stress. It's easy to get caught up in negative thoughts. They can be intrusive, they can be invasive, and they can be destructive. But with some time and effort on your part, you can pay more attention to your thoughts and catch negative thoughts as you experience them. Once you catch them, it's absolutely up to you to reframe the situation, to look at it from a different angle, from a different perspective, to question the validity of your negative thoughts or the magnitude of the situation. There are so many different things that you can do when it comes to your own thoughts and your own perceptions that can actually be helpful to you. Because what happens, oftentimes people let their minds and let their thoughts run amok and just let things happen by themselves without any interference, without any supervision, without any guidance. to those thoughts without any filters, without any consideration of whether these thoughts and perceptions are real, are true, are valid, and whether or not they're helping you in your situation or actually harming you. So pay attention to your thoughts and reframe as need be to make the stressors less stressful or to eliminate them altogether. And while I know that some people may try this and find it too difficult at first, it really isn't difficult. It's just a matter of being consistent. So I strongly suggest that you pay attention to your thoughts and make sure that you're questioning the validity of anything that's negative, anything that's destructive or detrimental, and that you make an effort of reframing and using different filters or changing your perception in such a way that is actually helpful to you. As you can see, there are many things that you can do to address chronic stress, from controlling your thoughts or paying attention to your thoughts, reframing your perception of situations, self-care, making sure you're doing something, taking steps on a regular basis. And by regular basis, I mean on a daily basis. Chronic stress didn't get to you overnight. It's something that happened over time. So getting better and moving beyond it and being able to master getting away from chronic stress and its effects will take some time and effort and consistency on your part. So I encourage you to commit to yourself and to your well-being by doing something that reduces stress, by doing something that reduces the magnitude and gravity of the stressors in your life, doing things that remove as many of the stressors in your life as possible, doing things that build your health, your well-being, your resilience, so that collectively you can successfully get above and beyond the chronic stress and its effects that you may be currently experiencing. If you'd like to learn more about a comprehensive approach to stress management, check out the links below.